Despite the Saintess's warnings that bringing his powers through the portal would endanger him, Min casually grabbed her by the collar, then happily left, taking his fully cultivated dark magic with him. The space-time gate opened right before her eyes, leaving the Saintess stunned, bewildered, and completely floored. What the hell is that? Shouldn't a dark magic user be unable to open a space-time gate? Well, maybe that applies to others. But there's nothing I can't do, so farewell, and I hope to never see you again, Saintess. Landing in a half-kneeling, half-crawling position in his own apartment, Kim Min-jun was drenched in cold sweat. This space-time journey had consumed a great deal of his energy, but seeing the familiar scenery with his computer and beloved phone, Min's spirits instantly lifted. He couldn't hold back any longer and immediately logged into his favorite game in a state of utter bliss. Cannot connect to the network. Please check your connection status and try again. A notification that was like a bucket of cold water splashed on Min's joyful mood. At this exact moment, a squad was secretly approaching Kim Min-jun's building to carry out a mission. Even the men assigned to this mission had no damn clue why grunts like them were here. But facing monsters wasn't a lucky break, it was a terrifying mission. Just as they noticed movement and prepared to act, they saw Min strolling casually down the street. It should be noted that this road had been restricted by the military to ensure public safety. The civilian who just returned from the devil's grasp was just sulking because he couldn't get an internet connection to play his game. Could it be that in the 2 years I was gone, the technology in this country has devolved? The soldiers called out to Kim Min-jun, telling him to come over. But it quickly changed to a warning young man run. Kim Min-jun was bewildered. Behind him was a giant wolf with a massive set of jaws. This stupid dog isn't even worth punching, Min thought, frowning. But at the same time, he discovered that his dark magic energy had completely vanished. Min grabbed the wolf's forehead with one hand. With an unchanging expression, he slammed its head down with a thud, cracking the tiles beneath. Not only the wolf was surprised, but even the soldiers were stunned by this sight. They thought without dark magic, Min would be just a cripple, but no. I'm still strong as hell, okay? Remembering the hellish training in Isgard, Min still felt a lot of resentment. But why did this little thing show up here? After finishing off the dog, Min just stood up and turned to apologize to the soldiers, which still sent shivers down their spines. On the way to the evacuation base, the soldier told him he could go to jail for wandering around that morning. He was also surprised because Min was like a wild man. Kim Min-jun made up a story about being abroad. He also wondered what had happened during the 2 years he was in Isgard. The dungeon phenomenon appeared when he was about 7. He remembered the soldiers who had defeated the monsters. With the appearance of dungeons awakened, superhumans also emerged with abilities surpassing normal people. They joined the newly formed Hunter Corps at the military base and quickly eliminated monsters as soon as they appeared. Before Kim Min-jun was kidnapped, the Korea he knew had no dangers within residential areas. Dungeon and Stone. The server on Min's phone hadn't completely disappeared. It was so hard to get back, and now I can't even play my game. Isn't this depressing as hell? The soldier driving was also very curious about Min. But remembering the scene of him fighting a wolf barehanded, he thought it was better not to be nosy. Finally, Min couldn't take it anymore. He turned to ask the soldier with a serious expression, but his words were jumbled. Things like monsters and dungeon theory were now even taught in universities, and this soldier had gotten an A in that subject, a score that those with bottom-tier GPAs could only dream of. The reason the situation worsened was due to strange phenomena that started appearing from dungeons 2 years ago. Dungeons began to appear more frequently larger, and the number of giant monsters also increased. The army could no longer control the dungeons, leading to the isolation of some residential areas, using various measures to fight back, but facing a shortage of manpower. But that wasn't what Min wanted to know. Your listening comprehension is really problematic, young man. How old are you now? He suddenly asked. Min replied that he thought he was 21, and the soldier said he should enlist immediately. With the current situation, all military service was for 5 years, and at Min's age, he should have already received a registration letter. The problem was starting to get serious now I came back to play Dungeon and Stone, but now I have to face 5 years of military service. What the hell is this? Just then, Min received a military enlistment notification message from the government. And the deadline was tomorrow. Yep, it's 100% accurate. Because Min was so shocked by this bitter truth, the soldier suggested he go to the PC room near the evacuation base to check. Back when Min was in the Isgard Empire, He had a nonsensical yet philosophical conversation with a swarm of spiders about his chaotic and endless work as a dark mage. To use insane skills, a dark mage needs dark energy, but that energy source is not as abundant and endless as the mana of ordinary mages. So the question he posed to the swarm of spiders was, what is the best method for a dark mage to replenish and retain their dark energy? Unfortunately, the spiders had all been sent by him to have tea with the king of hell, so they couldn't answer. And at times like these, the only thing that could appear was the dungeon boss, the spider's nest. This little one didn't come here to answer him, but to win this battle. However, Min was also here for that very reason. Seeing its offspring die tragically, the Spider Queen let out a roar filled with burning rage. Min saw and Min judged. Its answer is completely wrong. The answer is to defeat monsters with maximum power. As he spoke, he punched it straight in the brain to seize its dark energy. That was 645 days before Kim Min-jun returned to Earth. In the present, he was invited to the military base for tea. The person who greeted him was the battalion commander. The man asked if he had any special reason for applying to the Hunter Corps. He replied that he had some business in the dark dungeon, an incredibly nonsensical answer that made the atmosphere fall silent. After that, the man burst out laughing, praising Min for being humorous. Thanks to this humor, Min was exempted from the cost of breaking the hall floor. Kim Min-jun awkwardly drank water. I wasn't even joking. What's so funny? All dungeons appearing in Korea are managed by the military, and the top priority regarding them and monster conquest clearly belongs to the Hunter Corps. They consist of highly skilled individuals where you can get promoted regardless of your service time as long as you prove your abilities. There were no limits, so Kim Min-jun was thinking of joining the Hunter Corps to single-handedly wipe out most of the monsters in the dungeons. And in that process, he could very well have a chance to encounter monsters with dark energy. When that happens, along with super-fast progress, he would be able to recover his lost power. Yes, and that's everything that happened in Min's imagination. In real life, it's just a few painful blows. A rosy life is not guaranteed. But that wasn't what he was thinking about. Then the dungeon warrior forces could relax and develop their fourth awakening, and I will become a high-salaried public service hero, a perfect plan. At this moment, Hunter Corps Sergeant Lee Sung-ho came to report. The man who had hosted Min immediately introduced Kim Min-jun as the recruitment target he had mentioned earlier. Looking at Min, Lee Sung-ho was skeptical of his hunting abilities. Then he told him to open a status window and show him his stats. Although Kim Min-jun wasn't too pleased with this attitude, the task still had to be done. The status window was something Isgard also had, but he rarely used it as it only provided bland statistics and abilities. I just don't understand why this thing is here. Under Lee Sung-ho's pressure for information, Min's face contorted. It reported an error. Lee Sung-ho thought he was being played, and his face turned red with anger. Meanwhile, somewhere in Gyeonggi-do, where the Hunter Corps training center was located, a private conversation was taking place in the battalion commander's office. The commander seemed very pleased with this meeting after 10 years. The person he met was the descendant of an old comrade. She was Hunter's son Yunseo. Although he called her that, Yunseo denied it, saying she was just a new recruit. And if he called her here because of her father, she didn't expect any special treatment. The man calmly explained that he might have given her the wrong impression, but it was clear that preferential treatment wouldn't happen in a merit-based environment like the Hunter Corps. Moreover, he just wanted to give her a few words of encouragement before the training process began. At this moment, through the window, he saw a vehicle entering the barracks. The man chuckled, remembering he had received a funny report today, and that Sun Yunseo might get a very interesting comrade. He asked if she wanted to go meet this person with him. Kim Min-jun stood below, craning his neck to look at the towering building in front of him. He had seen, and he had judged. It's hard to calculate how much tax money was poured into this facility because it doesn't look like a joke at all. Seeing his overly dramatic expression, Lee Sung-ho reminded Min to tone it down as staring, like that was offensive. And because he was a special case, he would personally test him. If not for the headquarters decision, he would have wanted to drag Kim Min-jun to Yongchang immediately. Once all the tests are done, and Min is confirmed to be a liar, he should be ready for immediate enlistment into the military police. Wow, this seems to be a super stingy guy. The test for Min was to move this super huge and also super heavy red boulder. Even just an inch would be enough to pass. And the time for him to complete the challenge was 10 minutes. This mineral is called a bloodstone. a product created from a dungeon. Not only is it extremely dense and heavy, but compared to its massive size, this is already a ridiculously hard challenge. I'm so glad the test is this simple. Under Lee Seung-ho's frown, which looked like it could trap a fly, he began to speculate on one scenario after another. Watching his test were not only Lee Seung-ho, but also the man from before and Sun Un-seo. Telling her about Min's situation, he still couldn't stop laughing. It's all because of that faulty status window. But because of that, it also makes Kim Min-jun unique. This ore was something Kim Min-jun was very familiar with back in Isgard, and obviously he could easily push it. But greed told him that there might be dark energy inside, and with unwavering faith in his intuition, Min punched the giant ore to pieces. Everyone present at the scene was wide-eyed and open-mouthed, witnessing what just happened. After a punch as strong as a sledgehammer came down, the ore cracked open. Revealing nothing inside, Min's disappointment was visible. It's unclear what happened, but this soldier was drenched in sweat, his eyes wide and white, panting heavily. And the whole troop of soldiers behind him was no different. Before enlisting in the Hunter Corps, they all knew the training here wouldn't be simple because they would have to participate in real combat right after training. The main training was to train like crazy for 4 weeks. A prime example was what they were doing now, carrying sandbags up 6,000 steps of a slope. But that wasn't all, as the demon drill instructor Lee Seung-ho would constantly push them while checking their completion time. With such a brutal physical training method, what everyone looked forward to was their stats increasing, even if just a little. Everyone thought it was the same for all of them, since they were all new soldiers. But nope. While the whole squad was panting like they were about to die, Min was unusually excited. The little guy was running and smiling, dashing like an arrow with a super light body. If I had magic, I could probably fly. Kim Min-jun didn't look like he was training at all. It was more like a mountain stroll. He left the straggling squad far behind, enjoying the wonderful feeling that the training in Isgard could never provide. Thinking of the overwhelmingly delicious food here and also the free time after completing the schedule. Thinking of the PC room inside the facility with specs comparable to outside ones, Min felt like he was gaining more strength. He floored it, launching his supercar at godlike speed, leaving the other group already distant even further behind. Seeing Min run even faster than before, the rooster-haired guy leading the group began to question his existence. Very quickly, Kim Min-jun dashed to where Lee Seung-ho was. Seeing Min running like a ghost, he couldn't help but exclaim, "What the hell is that?" Meanwhile, Min stepped onto the last stair and still felt a bit disappointed because the path was too short. Seeing Kim Min-jun finish the path meant for new soldiers, which should have taken an hour, in just over 21 minutes, he was shocked, stiff. Meanwhile, Min was constantly spinning around and asking him about the reward ticket for going out if the completion time was less than 30 minutes. Lee Seung-ho didn't answer him, just silently pulled out a piece of paper. Min grabbed his reward and vanished, leaving Lee Seung-ho staring at the displayed time deep in thought. He secretly resolved to observe Min more closely. The new soldiers returned to their room looking half dead. The rooster-haired guy, seeing his stats increase by only 1 point, still shouted in excitement. The guys in the room gathered to congratulate him, and he turned to ask Kim Min-jun about his stats. As for him, he thought he had misheard when the guy was happy with just 1 point. Back in Isgard, his stats would increase by 10 points every day. The rooster-haired guy then asked how he planned to use the ticket. Everyone was envious of his achievement, but more than that, they wanted to learn his training regimen to improve more. Back in Isgard, no one wanted to interact with him just because he was a dark mage, but the atmosphere here made him extremely excited. Hearing that the PC room was open again, Min rushed over there. Sitting in front of the computer, he felt like he was in heaven. Looking at the clock, he started calculating, leaving himself 2 hours for sleep. That was already more than enough compared to Isgard, where he didn't even get an hour of sleep. Watching him play League of Legends, his comrades thought he was still using 2G in the era of 4G and the upcoming 5G. It went on like that for a whole week. During the training run, Kim Min-jun didn't break a sweat and just treated it like a casual stroll. Meanwhile, he mostly played games during his break and only slept for 2 hours a day, maintaining this for the entire 4 weeks of training. People even thought he was a monster. I don't accept that title, but I want to be the hero who shares water with everyone. Does anyone want some water? No one refused that. A lively scene of a mother hen feeding water to her chicks was unfolding, when a person approached and yelled into a megaphone that the lieutenant was very disappointed with the team's performance. They were the worst squad. The lieutenant wanted to take them to train in a custom dungeon. It's the type of dungeon that usually disappears after you defeat all the monsters and bosses, but sometimes there are dungeons that persist. In that case, it will transform into a convertible dungeon, changing its internal structure daily, and becoming a great training facility to experience all kinds of different environments within a dungeon. Real training in a convertible dungeon is custom dungeon training a nightmare for all new recruits. The lieutenant was very satisfied seeing this reaction from the new recruits. After sowing fear, he motivated them with a big reward, a 3-day, 2-night vacation pass. Assuming the recruits would be excited, but no, they all still looked miserable. There was one person who was extremely happy, none other than Min Vacation Pass, here I come. On the day the custom dungeon training began, the new recruits almost fainted just from seeing the entrance gate. A truck carrying a horde of pitch-black monsters with glowing eyes sped by, causing all the recruits to panic. The new recruits were so scared seeing the ferocious hounds that they scrambled in panic, falling onto the ground. An experienced player like Min, however, found them as cute as a pug or a chihuahua. That fear didn't get them out of this training session. The lieutenant ordered the recruits to form groups of 4 to enter the convertible dungeon. All teams would fight one hound for an hour and then return. Each recruit would be provided with an exclusive protective armor set from the MI-D2 Hunter Core, produced for the purpose of mechanical body protection with an extremely crude and heavy design. The newbies already struggling found it even harder, but everyone thought this equipment was too little, thinking it was better than nothing. Only Kim Min-jun knew that this monstrous thing was not only uncomfortable, but also useless. Its only merit being its high price, a shiny item, and I don't like it. Lieutenant, I have a question. If we can defeat the hounds quickly, are we allowed to take off this gear? A bold question that surprised even the lieutenant. But looking at the person asking, he felt there was nothing unreasonable about it. But remember, this is a team training session, and you can't just excel alone. Looking at the worried and bewildered recruits, the responsibility of carrying the team, it's simple. Just teach them how to fight monsters. What's there to worry about? Thinking is doing. Min enthusiastically showed his colleagues how to fight monsters in a way he considered extremely easy. After a while of demonstrating and explaining, Kim Min-jun looked at the newbies with sparkling eyes, even though he hadn't won any victories yet. And of course, the inexperienced newbies couldn't understand what he was saying, all of them looking blank. The lieutenant ordered the instructors to release the hounds. The dogs, instead of charging at the humans, ran straight into the dungeon without hesitation. This confused the recruits. Kim Min-jun gave a faint smile. They were captured all day, and their home just appeared. Why wouldn't they go home? But how does Min know? Because his time in Isgard compared to these hounds now wasn't much different. At this moment, the lieutenant arrived and accused them of fooling around during a very serious mission. Therefore, the whole group had the honor of being the vanguard for today's training. After the lieutenant finished speaking, an instructor used a baton to herd them into the dungeon. The 4 of them walked through the bright green gate together. Min had told his teammates that if he could take off this armor, he could even solo the whole pack. Outside, the lieutenant used the radio to command the instructors inside to guide and control the recruits' situation. In a rock crevice, 2 instructors were waiting for orders. Realizing Kim Min-jun was also in the first group to enter, the 2 instructors stared intently through the crevice. Kim Min-jun was eager to fight monsters. He was clearly calculating both individual and team combat strategies. After a moment, he turned to his teammates and said, "It's coming." His teammate was clueless, not understanding what it was. Kim Min-jun then added that it was a pack of hounds coming together. As soon as he finished speaking, several hounds charged out. The 3 recruits in his team couldn't hide their panic and screamed. Min calmly reassured them that the armor was very sturdy and then boldly stepped forward to face the dogs. These 3 were also very smart. They split into a 3-pronged attack. The one that charged straight at Kim Min-jun was sent straight to hell in the blink of an eye with just 1 slap. The others attacking the other recruits survived a bit longer. But it was nothing because he arrived and kicked one of them, sending it to join the first dog in hell. After dealing with the dog, he turned to instruct his teammates. In a flash, only 1 dog remained. This time, Kim Min-jun didn't solo it himself, but stood back and directed his 2 teammates to fight. He was so skilled that the 2 hiding instructors were stunned, wondering if he was a recruit or the commander-in-chief. Under his direction, the other 2 recruits quickly cornered the dog until it stopped breathing. One instructor said, "Could that guy be a Hunter Corps sergeant who regressed to the day before his enlistment?" Things like that only happen in novels. But anyway, Min had cleared this round brilliantly, so a high score was certain, and his teammates were also dragged past the average score. The two instructors came out of hiding and guided the group to the exit. Min excitedly asked them what score he got, and if he would receive the vacation. Talking so much it got annoying. Kim Min-jun compared them to a large Sunda Korean blood sausage, making the scarred instructor's eyes glaze over. At this moment the ground shook again, signaling something bad. The scarred instructor hastily ordered them to turn on the radio to broadcast outside before it was too late. The recruits thought it was an earthquake, but it was actually the dungeon transforming right at that moment. The result of the transformation was unknown, but right now the exit was closing. Of course it was too late to get out. The radio was no longer working. The structural transformation time was supposed to be in over a month. What the hell? But the urgent matter at hand was that they needed to escort the recruits to a safe place. After reaching a safe place, the instructors reassured the group before finding a spot to discuss their battle plan. An unexpected situation like this was quite concerning, so the first thing to do was to stabilize the team's morale. The instructors already knew the situation wasn't great. If this dungeon turns into a closed dungeon, it might be harder to beat than I thought. But it's just a complicated situation, not the worst since I'm here. The scarred instructor told his comrade that the dungeon had turned into a closed dungeon. The other instructor looked very muscular, but when he heard about this case, his overreaction made the scarred instructor grit his teeth and curse. In their current situation, more monsters would appear. The only way to escape a closed dungeon was to defeat every single monster inside without any outside support. 4 inexperienced recruits and 2 instructors had to conquer this dungeon. Ever since they were informed, everyone became tense. They didn't know what kind of monsters had appeared, and if they were unlucky, this could be the end for all of them. But we can't just sit still. We have to keep moving while we still have energy. It would be better if the instructors were fully equipped. In this situation, even just goblins would be enough to wipe us all out. It would take the scarred instructor more than 10 minutes just to take down one. The most feasible and realistic plan was to utilize the armor equipped on the recruits. If the recruits went first, the instructors could defeat the monsters while they were held back. But an instructor's pride wouldn't allow him to do that. While walking, Kim Min-jun suddenly flinched and froze. While everyone was still shocked, the lead instructor clutched his face and screamed, spewing out his lunch before collapsing unconscious. The remaining instructor immediately ran to check the situation. Kim Min-jun tried to stop him, but it was too late. He suffered the same fate as the scarred instructor. The main fighting force had all fallen. Kim Min-jun quickly told the other soldiers not to rush forward if they didn't want the same to happen, and Min went to check the situation himself. Since it wasn't serious, they had only fainted. He wasn't surprised at all because he had smelled a very familiar scent. Kim Min-jun glanced into the cave, then grabbed the 2 instructors, tossed them to the recruits, and told them not to follow him, just to stay near the exit. After that, he charged into the cave like a tiger returning to the jungle. Kim Min-jun was extremely excited that that thing existed on Earth, the thing that made the instructors faint dark energy. Even the people of Isgard were covered by a special protective layer to avoid this fate. It was dangerous for ordinary people, but for a top-tier dark mage, like Kim Min-jun, it was just a mosquito bite, nothing at all. In fact, for him, this was a battery pack after so many days of being starved of energy. Inside, the space was covered in a dreamy, mystical pinkish-purple hue, and no trace of monsters could be found nearby. However, just by tilting his head up, he could see the hiding dog, a heavy-class dark hound. When he first arrived in Isgard, he had almost lost his life to the claws of this species. But now he was very happy to see its familiar face and, thanks for the meal. Min decisively delivered a finishing blow, ending the beast in an instant. A huge amount of dark energy poured out, and Min absorbed it all, leaving nothing behind. The blood of this hound species was poisonous, causing flesh to rot, but it was useless against a dark mage. The dark energy gave him an extremely exhilarating feeling. Such a large amount of energy only charged him up by about 5%. Based on how the instructors reacted, this was probably the first time this situation had occurred. The possibility of dogs being able to move between dimensions was even more impossible. Therefore, it could only be the result of him transmigrating back or caused by the saints. I don't know if I'm overthinking it, but right now I need to find that dog's corpse to go back and write a magnificent report. When the scarred instructor woke up and saw the worried faces of the recruits, he hastily asked about the situation. The bald recruit reported that everyone was fine. Only Kim Min-jun had gone deep into the dungeon. After hearing everything, the scarred instructor was incredibly agitated. He gritted his teeth at Min's reckless action, but also blamed himself for not protecting the recruits and fainting instead. "Instructor, look!" Another recruit shouted while the scarred instructor was already thinking of a rescue plan. Kim Minjun returned carrying the dog and happily asked if everyone was okay. The two instructors were scared out of their wits when they saw this giant hound. Kim Minjun bent over and threw the dog towards the two for them to see. While the group was marveling, the dungeon gate reopened. The scarred instructor still couldn't believe he had defeated that dog. After confirming the situation, he ordered the other to escort the recruits out first, and he would follow. The scarred instructor told Min that he would have to explain everything to the lieutenant himself. Someone like him couldn't help, just like when Min had fought the dog on his own without him. After that, the two of them went out together. Getting praised in the last week of training is pretty nice, isn't it? Just then, the status window finished patching its error. His stats were all at 60 with 10 magic power, and he possessed the F-rank rot skill. Wow, a skill that's both low rank and stinks. Even Min himself was outraged. As for the line founder of the Church of Luminuna, my favorite character, it was just something he made up to avoid crazy fans back in Isgard. How the hell is that crappy thing here too? But it seemed he had weakened quite a lot. The plot is so ridiculous, like a 3-cent third-rate novel, and he couldn't achieve any of his goals if he continued like this. Therefore, he needed to set a goal to recover his strength as soon as possible. It's all because the game company's development is being held back by monsters. This is nothing compared to my time in Isgard. That day, the entire training center was in chaos due to the incident. Everyone was talking about Kim Minjun's story of defeating the Hound. As for the main character, he was summoned to the command office to report. The leader here was very much looking forward to seeing him after his achievement and wanted to give him a special invitation. "Would you like to hear it?" he asked. "A crane among chickens." These were the words used to describe Min at this moment. Of course it is. The commander never expected that at his age he would still witness such a wonderful sight. A crane trying to act above average to look like a chicken. It would be a national loss to place a genius like this in a regular rank, especially when they needed to recruit more personnel. "I heard you want to get promoted as soon as possible, but according to our laws, privates are not allowed to take the promotion exam for another year. However, if you were granted an exception, that would be a different story. It must be admitted. This man really knew how to lead a conversation. You can tell just by looking at Min's excited expression. Seizing the opportunity, he said loudly, "If you volunteer to join the Hunter Corps in Kaorwan Gangwon province, I will use my authority as training commander to grant you this exception. If you go there, you won't have to wait another year." The more he spoke, the more excited he became. The commander stood up directly. In contrast to his excitement, Min just remained silent. An awkward atmosphere enveloped them, only missing a flock of crows flying by to complete the combo. While the commander was frozen in awkwardness, Min was thinking about the 104th Division. The Invisible Hunter Corps, a place his comrades had mentioned with a warning to stay away at all costs. The weather was freezing with constant and thick snowfall. But it's not boring at all because dungeons and monsters will always appear unexpectedly. It's the most fascinating place in the rear lines. A wonderful place. For Min, as long as he could get promoted, experiencing it anywhere wasn't an issue. Above all, the conditions there were too ideal for someone like Min. The higher the rank, the larger the operational range, and clearly there was no better way to get an exception than by completing a dungeon mission. So he was decisive. "I will go to Cheorwan." One morning, 3 vehicles and a large crowd of soldiers gathered in front of the center. "Kim Minjun, you have to call me when you get to the base, you hear." The bald-headed recruit tearfully said his goodbyes as they each went their separate ways to conquer new horizons. It should have been very touching, but who knew that coming from Min's mouth, it would turn into a cold, new misery. Finally, the bald guy left. Everyone had been picked up by people from their new units, leaving only Kim Minjun standing there alone. Just as he was wondering why he was the only one left, a heavy-duty military truck rumbled towards him. The other person got out of the truck and called out to him loudly. Kim Minji possessed a muscular build, a full head taller than Min with a scar on his face, and wearing dark sunglasses looking incredibly intimidating. The man said that the snow had caused a considerable delay and made him wait a long time. Min humbly reported his rank, saying the wait was no problem. The thing he was more concerned about was the snow. "It's only month, how can there be snow?" Kim Minji's demeanor was extremely rigid. "Get in the truck." Min started thinking about the harsh training, the frequent monster battles, and the new life at the base, but none of it was a problem for him. The thing he worried about was bullying. That was the only thing he couldn't tolerate. But he still had to endure it, because just one incident with a superior was enough to get him sent to the military prison like a common soldier. After a long journey, the Hunter Corps was right before his eyes. This place actually had snow. The corps belonged to the 104th Division, and Min was assigned to the 2nd Battalion. As soon as the room door opened, Kim Minji gave him a push and said curtly, "That's the new recruit, train him." The door slammed shut. Red hair and brown hair both stared with wide eyes and open mouths. The two asked Min his name. Upon hearing the 3 words, Kim Minjun, they immediately burst out laughing. "Your reputation has traveled quite far, huh?" Red hair snatched Min's luggage and threw it to another bald guy, ordering him to open it. Kim Minjun's face darkened, frowning. Are these the 2 leaders of this dormitory? And they were treating him like a new toy. Brown hair asked him why he came here. Min answered very seriously that it was for combat experience and the fastest way to get promoted. "You're fucking crazy." The 2 of them laughed wretchedly together. Then they started asking about all sorts of random things, most of which were related to girls. These guys are stationed here year-round, so they must be pretty desperate. Too bad. Min was a straight-laced guy obsessed with the opposite sex, so they could only change the subject. When asked to perform a talent, Min raised one finger and said he would do a push-up with just that. While Red Hair was still thinking that was utter bullshit, Min had already gotten into a one-finger handstand. His entire body was as straight as a pole, giving the 2 a reason to be amazed. Being able to do what he did, they mentioned someone with a 3-word nickname, that bastard, and that bastard in their mouths wasn't much, just a sergeant. Just as they mentioned him, the person arrived at the door, his attitude not very friendly. Seeing Min doing a handstand right in the doorway, he spoke in a low voice, his eyes flashing with 2 dangerous red streaks. "Hey, get out of the way." "Oh, I thought it was someone else. Turns out it's an acquaintance. Sergeant Lee Sung-ho." I thought Red Hair and Brown Hair were afraid of Lee Sung-ho, but no. Those 2 didn't spare any words or actions to piss him off. Lee Sung-ho was human after all. It was natural for him to get angry, but thanks to that, those 2 troublemakers finally left. Lee Sung-ho finally let out a long sigh and lay down to rest. Before he could even close his eyes for a few seconds, he pulled out his phone again to watch a lecture video about dungeon terrain. After a while, he called Private Dongjin, telling him to guide Kim Minjun thoroughly. Seeing this, Min very politely greeted his superior, but he wanted to talk after they got to the dining hall. Hearing Min say that, Dongjin was stunned. "You can't just go there whenever you want." Dongjin led Kim Minjun to the cafeteria and generously treated him to a meal. If he had known beforehand that Min would wolf down 300,000 won worth of food in one go, he probably would have heeded Min's earlier warning about his large appetite. Unfortunately, there was no magic to help him go back to the moment he made that foolish decision. While eating like a pig, Min asked Dongjin about not being allowed to eat there normally and needing special privileges. "Privates and lower ranks can only come here on weekends," Dongjin gently explained. "Also, to use the gym, you have to be at least a private first class, and to use the PC room, you need to be a sergeant." Hearing that almost made me choke on my snack. Guessing he found those rules unreasonable, Dongjin helplessly reminded him to get used to it. "Is there no way to change it?" Kim Minjun immediately asked back. "There's only one option, which is to keep getting promoted. That's a given. But since the restriction on using the PC room was absolutely unbearable for a hardcore addict like him, this was a huge problem." The 2 had a very open conversation about promotion. At this moment, a rooster-haired guy came over, put his arm around Dongjin's shoulder, and asked about him with an extremely mocking and ill-intentioned attitude. He was Sergeant Kim Gwang-shik. Seeing him say that, Dongjin quickly invited him to eat with them. Of course, this shameless guy didn't refuse. He ate very naturally and like a tiger, and Min started to find him an eyesore. He then said he wouldn't pick on them for sitting here chatting, but he wouldn't let it slide if the results of tomorrow's weapons training weren't good, regardless of whether they were new. Dongjin quickly said he had already explained the weapons training to the new recruit. He was still talking when Kim Gwang-shik interrupted, even scolding Dongjin with a few more words. And that's when Kim Gwang-shik thoroughly got on Min's nerves. "I'm not putting up with this anymore. So little bro, please take some dark energy and vomit up what you just swallowed, before it even had time to digest. Even if it's free, you can't just freeload like that," the ancient said. So probably. While he was boasting enthusiastically, an earthquake-like tremor ran through, making Kim Gwang-shik suddenly shut down his loudspeaker. He quickly stood up, grabbed various snacks, looked them over to check the expiration dates. Then his face darkened, and he clutched his stomach and left. Even if it's a low-level skill in some cases, it can still make creatures with chronic, annoying diseases suffer the consequences. The two returned to their conversation about the weapons training. It's simply using a KX-2 rifle with a warhead stronger than an ICM round with heavy recoil and a sound like a cannon. But that didn't surprise or worry Min, because it couldn't even hold a candle to the long-range weapons in Isgard after 7,749 days of trying. The power of that handgun must be on par with an elephant's. One stomp and you're flat. Wow, tomorrow is going to be something to look forward to. Looking at the dog target shot to smithereens was enough to see the terrifying skill of the shooter. But that one missed shot also made Min feel that it was too bad. However, around here hitting 19 shots was already considered a strange phenomenon. Even the red-haired guy from yesterday only held the record of 14 shots. The others watching from above couldn't help but exclaim, "So tough, so monstrous." The scarred sergeant who picked him up the other day also came out to praise him directly, even placing special faith in him for this afternoon's special weapons training. Red hair and brown hair started to gossip again, but were immediately reprimanded by the scarred sergeant. Min was still clueless about what this special weapons training was. This was because Dongjin didn't anticipate Min's level of excellence and forgot to explain. Basically, a team of 2 would enter the training facility together and eliminate monsters on the way to the finish line. They needed to pay attention to the civilian target signs that appeared suddenly and were not to be shot. Hearing about live monsters, Min seemed extremely excited. During lunch, Dongjin excitedly expressed his admiration for Min's achievement of hitting 19 shots, an unprecedented feat for Min in the Hunter Corps. Speaking of good shooting technique, there was another person in this corps, Lee Sung-ho, who averaged 17 hits on target. So now you've taken the #1 spot, right? But anyway, Dongjin had great faith that Min would do well in the special weapons training. Kim Min-jun then asked him why he wasn't participating with him since a team was supposed to have 2 people. But not everyone could participate, and furthermore, the 2 team members would be decided by the executive director. According to the news, it was done through a ladder lottery to create random pairings also known as ghost leg. Very quickly, it was time for the special weapons training. The scarred sergeant was the instructor for this training session. Unexpectedly, Kim Gwangshik was his partner for this training. Before the battle even started, he was already being loud. "Oh ho, teamed up with a new recruit. I guess it's not a balanced match. After all, a sergeant and a private are 2 different worlds. After all, a sergeant and a private are 2 different worlds. But it's fine. His mouth is right next to his ears. Let him boast all he wants. Losing later will be even more embarrassing and haunting." He even used his disgustingly contorted face to threaten Min. "Make sure to finish it in 3 minutes. If not, you'll regret it." Faced with his very provocative attitude, Min remained emotionless and silent, silently holding a grudge. After all, he's just a loser. Nothing more, nothing less. What's the big deal? Before the 2 of them officially faced off, another team would go first. After the command was given, the battle between the 2 sergeants began. The special weapons training began after a group of 2 was dropped into a ground facility from 2 separate directions. In other words, this was a tactical training exercise to clear monsters while protecting civilian targets within a limited area. However, in reality, it had turned into a competition within the army. The goal was to complete the challenge as quickly and cleanly as possible. Then press the completion button at the finish line before your opponent. Those outside could watch the progress of the competing teams on a live diagram on a large screen. There were even markers for monsters of different sizes on the screen. The bigger the marker, the more dangerous the monster. There were 2 monsters in each lane. The monster classification was also random, so you wouldn't know anything until you entered. The 2 who just entered only needed 2 minutes and 24 seconds to complete the challenge. 3 monsters appeared this time, an ogre, a rat, and a desert worm, and the winner would be treated to a meal at the PX. This bet existed because they had bet with each other. Kim Gwangshik recognized this petty game with just a glance. Hearing that, an idea immediately lit up in Min's mind. He said, "Why don't we make a bet?" Min decisively proposed a bet between them. The loser would do whatever the winner requested like a man. Of course, Kim Gwangshik wouldn't refuse a bet with more to gain than to lose like this. He laughed and said if he won, Kim Min-jun would have to give him 3 months' salary. Min didn't expect him to be so petty, so there was nothing to hesitate about. He agreed instantly. The kid made his decision so fast that Dongjin couldn't stop him in time. Very quickly, they entered the preparation area. As soon as he arrived, Kim Min-jun felt that familiar, cheap kind of provocation. He knew it wasn't good to stand out too much, but he wasn't mature enough to sit still when someone actively sought trouble. The battle started very quickly. The people watching outside were also extremely excited as they followed the match, because they also knew about the bet between the two competitors. None of them believed that Kim Min-jun would win. At this moment, the ground suddenly shook. People thought it was an earthquake, but no. A larger monster was approaching a smaller monster. Unfortunately, the mutation occurred in Kim Min-jun's lane. He also felt the tremors very close to him. The giant one-eyed, two-horned monster had devoured the rat in the first room. Although this was the first time he had seen this kind of action, Min was only thinking about finishing quickly to go back and eat fried chicken. When the monster saw him, it quickly threw away its half-eaten delicacy and charged at him. Min had to shoot this monster, but he couldn't hit the civilian targets. He started to get annoyed because the monster was too disruptive, so he used dark magic to send one of its arms flying. The monster was distracted by its severed arm, but with that opportunity, Min intended to shoot it down. But he had barely had the thought when its arm grew back. And the creature seemed even more aggressive than before. Meanwhile, the soldiers outside were also stunned by this situation. Even the scarred instructor was shocked to see this case. A cyclops is a gluttonous demon. Once it uses its energy, its regeneration and attack power increase sharply until its digestion process is complete. But there's something really weird here. It won't attack unless its life is in danger. Besides, it escaped from captivity and became enraged after eating another monster. What provoked it? It's this main character right here. Look at that face, all ready for a good fight. An enraged monster directly ignited Kim Min-jun's ultimate fighting excitement. He nimbly dodged its extremely fierce attacks, while not forgetting to let his sassy mouth run with an exclamation, "Oh my, what an energetic bastard." Although he had an easier way to defeat it, this was weapons training after all, so he had to use a gun. After a barrage of fierce shots, the monster was temporarily blinded. The recovery process for its eyes was slower than for its limbs, and this was the chance to finish off the monster cleanly. Of course, how could Min pass up an opportunity he created himself? But surprisingly, the monster could still attack him, even though it couldn't see anything. Even more astonishing was that it could aim precisely where he stood, while he was still pondering the reason it slashed down brutally. Luckily, he dodged in time, or his head would have been gone. Next, it used its remaining arm intending to crush Min flat. But there was no way it would be that easy. Min casually blocked the blow with just one hand, still immersed in his analysis. "You're reacting to my dark energy." His eyes flashed and his body was enveloped by eerie purple waves of energy. Meanwhile, the fully armed scarred sergeant entered Kim Min-jun's training tunnel. He desperately hoped that Min could hold on until he arrived to help. At the same time, in the other tunnel, Kim Guangshik was excitedly running like the wind, clocking in at around 2 minutes and 30 seconds. He was sure this was an achievement a private like Min could never match, and he had already started thinking about how to spend Min's 3-month salary. Just as a beautiful vision appeared before his eyes of a vacation with blue seas, white sands, and golden sun. Why the hell did he see that loser standing there staring at the red button? Kim Min-jun was looking at the button. Seeing him, he gave a sarcastic smile and didn't hesitate to press the button right in front of him. This was the outcome Kim Min-jun wanted. An expression of disbelief was also present on Kim Min-ji's face. The scarred sergeant was also extremely curious as to how he could have defeated such a fearsome monster. Kim Min-jun and Kim Guangshik returned to the observation room together, but each in a different state of mind. The whole room cheerfully applauded Kim Min-jun's 2-minute achievement despite Kim Guangshik's sullen face. At that moment, Dongjin was the only one who worriedly asked about him while the rest were just celebrating the victory. While Kim Min-jun was mingling with the group, Kim Guangshik gritted his teeth and left. A soldier brought up the bet between the two and asked about the condition of Kim Min-jun's victory. As soon as he finished, Kim Guangshik returned, hit him, and demanded to cancel the bet. This guy was truly devious. He loudly claimed the bet wasn't fair because he fought 2 monsters while Min only fought 1. In a situation of being pressured by a superior, Lee Dongjin couldn't immediately side with a new recruit like Min. Although fighting that monster was quite a surprise, he wasn't too comfortable defeating it with his fists, so he intended to just forget about the bet. But this guy was annoying from every angle, so there was no way to have peace. Just as the group was being noisy, a voice spoke up. "Aren't you ashamed?" The new recruit took a higher risk. Hearing that Kim Guangshik wanted to see who the bastard who just uttered that sentence was, but the person continued to speak fluently. And this righteous character was none other than Lee Sung-ho. The conflict immediately shifted to these two. After 749 rounds of verbal combat, Lee Sung-ho delivered the final blow. Having a higher rank is great. Sergeant Guangshik full damage critical combo couldn't argue back a single word. Seeing that forehead as red as a gak fruit was also very satisfying. Although furious, Kim Guangshik of course didn't dare to talk back to Lee Sung-ho. Lee Sung-ho was a representative of the challenger tier in this hunter corps. He was once promoted 2 ranks for achieving the highest rank in the advanced exam. However, since then, the special exception was no longer in effect. The leadership had eliminated it because a sergeant who got promoted later caused an incident in a dungeon. Lee Sung-ho was one of the last cases. Even so, is there no other way to get an exception? There were also exceptional cases like rescuing civilians in an emergency or achieving outstanding results in a monster hunt. But it's better not to expect it. Even though he was desperate for a promotion, he didn't wish for civilians to get hurt. But anyway, it's too peaceful here. I want to get promoted right now. Oh God, I wish a gate would appear right now. As soon as he finished the sentence, it seemed a God-sent opportunity had arrived. The command radio from the control center issued an emergency alert. A significant number of intermediate-level bats had appeared in the oil storage area. Kim Min-jun also didn't expect his luck to be so good that his wish was granted. An intermediate-level bat is a type of bat monster the size of a child living in caves. A single one isn't a major threat, but they are particularly agile and, moreover, can spit fireballs. So their appearance at the oil reserve was an emergency, as the entire military camp could be blown up. At this moment, looking at the swarm of bats buzzing like flies overhead, the 2 guards didn't know what to do. The long-haired young man was getting very antsy and was about to open fire, but the short-haired young man stopped him because shooting was forbidden here. But they couldn't just stand and watch like that either. Thinking of the scene of the bats igniting the oil before help arrived, the 2 young men were scared stiff but could only feel helpless. Just as the 2 were scratching their heads in frustration, Kim Min-jun appeared and said he would draw their attention. The 2 guards, seeing he was a recruit and unarmed, showed a lack of trust. Oh my God, who has time to bring equipment when these precious guests who can help with my promotion are waiting like this? Thinking about the wonderful things he would get after this battle, Min was extremely excited. He immediately charged into the battle by activating his dark energy source to make the bats react. It's not outside of my expectations. In that case, all of you are mine. At this time, the rescue team was also rushing over. But what was this before their eyes? At this time, Lee Sung-ho, with large and small boxes, also came over to remind them why they were just standing there frozen. But right now, Kim Min-jun was clearing the path barehanded with incredible vigor. Seeing this, Lee Sung-ho shouted loudly, "Hey, you bastards! A private is drawing their attention, and you guys are just standing there watching." Kim Min-jun tore a bat in half with his hands as if tearing chicken meat. It's a bit too manual, so it's a bit time-consuming. Isn't there anything more useful? Just then, Lee Sung-ho ran over with an electric baton wanting to stop his reckless actions. But Min had no intention of listening. Anyone who tries to take credit from me has to get lost. Hey, but wait, that baton can stay. So please excuse me, Mr. Lee, if you get a little stomach ache. And so Kim Min-jun openly and honestly begged for the electric baton. To him, this thing was no different from an electric fly swatter. Wonderful. Right after Min's calculated smile, the swarm of bats was cleared at a godlike speed. A bat was about to spit a fireball. Lee Sung-ho immediately ordered a soldier to shoot it down. But before anyone could act, Kim Min-jun had already flown behind it and struck it down with his baton just as the fire was emerging from its mouth. How the hell did he get up there? Who knows? More importantly, how high did he just jump? The protective shield was activated to protect the oil reserve. The bodies of the bats were being cleaned up by other soldiers. There were so many that they didn't know when they would finish collecting them. Only at this point did the mission's commanding officer, Captain Song Junshik, appear, gave a few perfunctory words of praise, and then proceeded to ask about the situation. I don't understand where he was while others were fighting their hearts out. Lee Sung-ho was truly furious with this boss's work attitude. He kept thinking, kept frowning. Song Junshik said he would report his merits to the battalion commander. It wasn't me, Lee Sung-ho said decisively. Song Junshik was quite surprised. Lee Sung-ho still insisted that he was not the one who killed the 30 bats. Song Junshik was quite harsh because he couldn't think of anyone else with that ability besides him. Hello. I came to return this electric baton to you. Sir, this thing is very expensive. The kid got too excited and used it more like he was breaking it. snapping the baton. Nothing much. The next day, Kim Min-jun was called into a room by Lee Sung-ho for an interrogation with his 1001 why questions. Min calmly answered them all, yet the man concluded that his achievement yesterday was just luck. Suddenly, Min found this guy quite annoying too. Lee Seung-ho suddenly brought up the special nature of the Hunter Corps. Not every awakened person gets to enlist. I know that. But why bring this up now? He emphasized again that in the Hunter Corps, from private to division commander, everyone was an awakened person. Damn it, this is too terrifying. Although not all members fight, especially the officers, all of them are awakened. And Hunter soldiers are not promoted based on time in service, but on actual skill and achievements. Hearing these words from Lee, Sung-ho Min's face grew longer than a pump. Being called here early in the morning just to be lectured was already tiring, but the surprise had to be at the end of the game. Today, their Hunter Corps had the honor of welcoming a historical figure. The hunter who had hunted the most monsters in the history of the 104th Division, for a visit. It was this man with a bushy beard and mustache. Leading the welcoming party was the captain of the 2nd Company, Commander Lee Junbyum. Right behind him were 4 prominent figures: 2nd Company Operations Officer Captain Song Jun-shik, 2nd Company 2nd Platoon Leader Captain Seo John-woon, 2nd Company 2nd Platoon 2nd Lieutenant Kim Cheolmin, and 2nd Company 2nd Platoon 2nd Squad Leader Master Sergeant Lee Sewung-ho. As soon as he arrived, he immediately shook Lee Sung-ho's hand, praising him for his calm handling of the scene. Lee Sung-ho stood straight, loudly, and seriously saying, "Thank you, Commander." Looking at his murderous gaze, Kim Min-jun wondered what the standard was for achieving 2 stars in the Hunter Corps. Very quickly, it was Kim Min-jun's turn to be greeted with a handshake. He realized the man was using considerable strength. Using a lot of strength is fine, but why are you patting my back so hard while talking, old man? I'm gonna throw up. The whole team entered the meeting room. The Hunter Nim immediately asked if they had pinpointed the location where the dungeon gate had appeared. It's on a hill northeast of the barracks, 12 kilometers away. The Corps is currently securing the perimeter and investigating the gate's rank. Whatever he asked, everyone practically answered with all their might. A moment later, he reminded Min Kim, "Min-jun, you did a brave thing yesterday. Your initial reaction was swift, but you must also think of yourself and bring your equipment with you." But anyway, he still praised him for his swift reaction. If the oil tank had exploded, the entire army would have been wiped out. Therefore, the gift the division commander had for him was an on-the-spot promotion. Additionally, he also received a 3-day, 2-night vacation. This wonderful reward made Min unable to contain his emotions, his eyes sparkling and his mouth grinning from ear to ear. In the hallway, Kim Min-jun was praised again by the commander. He then asked him, since he had just enlisted and was already allowed to go home, where he planned to go. Thinking about this, the smile on Min's lips gradually twisted. The young man didn't hesitate and headed straight for the internet cafe. He wanted to have a fiery 3-day, 2-night vacation here. Just as he reached the door, he heard 2 men drinking on the sidewalk, talking about some guy not being allowed by the soldiers to enter a cave to pick mushrooms. The other guy then said someone named Chang Xian had already gone in there. Moreover, there's poisonous gas on the mountain. I'm afraid that guy will suffer the same fate if he goes in. The guy in the green hat adamantly refused to give up, thinking just wearing a gas mask would be enough. At this moment, Kim Min-jun spoke up, interrupting to ask them where that place was. Of course, someone like him couldn't possibly miss this monster hunt outside of his break time. Seeing the private first-class insignia on him, the 2 men were left speechless. Finally, they told him not to tell anyone about them sending Buddha to the west, and then left. Just standing at the foot of the mountain, he could already feel the familiar scent of dark energy. It was truly worth skipping the internet cafe to come here. Upon reaching the top, he saw that everyone was using gas masks to guard the entrance. As a PFC, I shouldn't stand out too much. So if you 2 don't mind having a bit of diarrhea, that'll give me a chance to slip inside and check the situation. The 2 guards quickly made a call to request a shift change. Taking that opportunity, Min slipped inside. Fumbling through the cave, he saw no trace of monsters, but felt an incredibly dense, magical energy. But that's not bad either. I can charge my batteries while I'm at it. Unexpectedly, he also upgraded the power of his Rot skill and unlocked a new skill, Nightwalker. It must be said this was truly beyond wonderful. The Rot skill had reached D-rank. Nightwalker was an E-rank skill. Nightwalker meant summoning a beast in the form of a shadow with special skills in hiding and assassinating targets. Quite useful. Maintaining the summon requires feeding it an equivalent amount of magic power each cycle. But anyway, this guy is worth the price. Probably because the price he paid for it was a bit low. This pitch-black ghost was tiny. Looking at it, Min didn't think this was something he created, but reality is always harsh. Just a tiny bit of sunlight shining on it made the little thing look like it was about to melt. No matter how you looked at it, it didn't seem like a summoned beast that could hide in the shadows. 3 days and 2 nights passed as quickly as the wind. In a flash, Kim Min-jun had returned to the core and was warmly welcomed by his roommates. Kim Min-jun scanned the room, then pulled out a paper bag and handed it to Dongjin. Min bought him a bottle of lotion. Dongjin was extremely touched to receive this gift from Min. But just as the two were talking, Kim Gwangshik appeared. Simply because he also had something he wanted Min to buy for him, a women's magazine called Maxim. Min did buy that, but it was packets of Maxim brand sugar. After a while, the conversation turned to the list of candidates for the promotion exam, which included Kim Min-jun's name, even though those with less than a year of service couldn't register themselves. The red-haired guy asked excitedly, "Did the division commander register for you?" Even so, the timing doesn't match. Hearing that the others exchanged meaningful glances. Amidst everyone's buzzing discussion, Kim Min-jun talked about the proposal the training battalion commander had made to him earlier. After hearing his story, the whole squad froze solid. Red hair and brown hair marveled together, unable to believe someone could be that crazy. While the squad was buzzing, Kim Gwangshik was quietly mixing the packet of sugar water Min had bought for him. Then they also quickly left. Before leaving, they left a piece of information called main weapon training. Is it any different from a rifle? The next morning, everyone started a theory class about the promotion exam taking place tomorrow. The Hunter promotion exam was divided into 2 main types conducted in the order of a written test and a practical test. The written test could be passed easily, with just basic knowledge, easier than the written driver's license test. But the most important part was still the practical test. In the practical test, they would be tested on main weapon proficiency and a status check their ability to respond to monsters. Kim Min-jun wondered what kind of reward he would get for a perfect score on the practical test. Maybe I should try to take it seriously. Very quickly, the main weapon training practical exam began. Privates and privates first class could only use swords. The senior soldiers held their own weapons and walked in the distance for individual practice. Privates and privates first class were trained in basic swordsmanship from the Hunter Corps' combat doctrine, and then they were to adapt it to themselves, not just mechanically imitate the doctrine. The instructor would demonstrate for them to follow his sword. Movements were extremely decisive and agile. Now Min understood why it was main weapon training. Because catching monsters with just a rifle was a ridiculously foolish act. When it was Min's turn to practice his swordsmanship, he used the techniques he had learned in Isgard. This is still better, but it seems to depend on the user. As soon as he finished, the instructor asked everyone to stop and invited Kim Min-jun to step forward. He wanted everyone to observe how Kim Min-jun did it. He also didn't hesitate to display his skills, leaving the whole team speechless. But suddenly becoming a training assistant is also tiring. Even resting wasn't peaceful. The instructor came over and said the training officer was very pleased with him. So he gave him a chocolate bar. As soon as this person left, another came. Dongjin came over again to ask him to demonstrate the technique for him. He's not very confident in his swordsmanship. Sigh, I can't ignore this friend. So Min ate his snack while watching Dongjin practice. His movements clearly showed he had trained very hard. This was indeed the swordsmanship of the Hunter Corps. The problem wasn't in the movements, but because he lacked confidence. And I am an expert at fixing that. However, now is not the time. When the time comes, I'll help you become a top hunter. Saturday, the day of the promotion survey. It's time to become a Sergeant Kim Min-jun. Today, Lieutenant Kim Cheol-min will be your guide. First, each person will report their rank number. Next, we will proceed to the 105th Division Gapyeong. On the way, Kim Min-jun noticed 2 soldiers discussing how Squad 4 was also participating in today's promotion survey. The other guy also didn't expect to be able to see girls today. It's 1,000% accurate information, so you might as well make a plan to hit on them. For Min, women were just fleeting things after all. That damn saintess was too haunting. The vehicle quickly brought the soldiers to the 105th Division. In the exam room, everyone silently received their results. Unbelievably, on this written test that was easier than eating cake, there was still one person who managed to fail. What talent! And of course, this guy was so embarrassed, there was nothing left to say. Except for him, the others would move to the practical exam room right away. Even after leaving the exam room, he was still being laughed at by the other soldiers. As the group passed, Sun Yun-seo was still watching Kim Min-jun's back. In the first practical test, Lieutenant Lee Cheol-ju was in charge of supervision. Before starting the test, he gave a very persuasive presentation, so much so that no one there felt anything but sleepy. Finally, in this year's promotion test, there are candidates competing based on a special exception. They are 104th Division Private First Class Kim Min-jun and Private Sun Yun-seo. After this statement, everyone's eyes turned towards Sun Yun-seo. A rose with thorns, but loved by many guys. Kim Min-jun was also quite surprised that besides him, there was another exception. The other soldiers competing had started to feel anxious. What kind of division is this full of monsters? Next, they started looking for the person who had been promoted to Private First Class. Sun Yun-seo had also noticed Min. It was a coincidence that their eyes met, but neither wanted to stare at the other for long. The practical test included checking strength, flexibility, and stamina stats, starting with the strength test. Nothing complicated, just push back the examiner in front of everyone. It was this pineapple-headed gentleman as big as an ox. Kim Min-jun remembered the time he shattered that boulder with one punch and couldn't help but wonder why every test was like this. It's so ridiculously absurd. The time for each person was a maximum of 1 minute. The score would be evaluated on the Hood-Rose scale, and the highest score would get a 10-meter movement bonus. One by one, they were called up to take the test. The first one was Private Kim Jin-yok from the 103rd Division. This guy was muscular with a rugged face, but unfortunately, no matter what he did, he couldn't budge the pineapple-headed teacher even a little. Completely hopeless at this point. The proctor reminded them that if anyone's score was below 40, they would be automatically eliminated from this exam. The audience started sweating bullets. The next candidates failed one after another from female to male. The supervising teacher started to get annoyed. When it was Sun Yun-seo's turn, she pushed the teacher 5 meters away to the astonishment of everyone present, including the one who was pushed. A young man shouted, praising her beauty. Someone recognized her as the daughter of the division commander. But no matter what, they were all infatuated with this girl. Sun Yun-seo, however, didn't pay any attention, glanced towards Min, and then decisively walked away quickly. Kim Min-jun had no thoughts other than realizing that she was also the one who got an exception. Right after that, it was Kim Min-jun's turn to take the test. Standing in front of the teacher, he thought, repeating what I did with the bloodstone probably won't work. But if I can send this person flying more than 10 meters, there should be a bonus score. So, sir, please be prepared to fly a bit far. The pineapple-headed teacher gritted his teeth, knelt down and pressed his hands to the floor just to stop himself from flying further. Just a gentle push had added an extra 2 or 3 meters of floor space, plus dug a hole in the floor. This terrifying achievement made both instructors sweat bullets. No doubt about it, a clean 100 points. And yet Min was still regretful. So there's no bonus score. Min's achievement was high, but that didn't mean everyone's was. The extremely harsh elimination process continued as usual. Because of its harshness, someone even started crying. The strength test finally ended, and those who passed would immediately proceed to the speed test. The soldiers on duty quickly brought out and set up a net, and also installed a large-caliber machine gun. Everyone guessed this was the bullet-dodging test. The instructor chuckled and said these were just rubber bullets, but getting hit would still hurt, so it was best to try and dodge all of them. This seems new. The maximum standard for the speed test was 1 minute. You just had to stay within the area to the left and right of the net for 1 minute. Additionally, you could also be recognized for your dodging ability through this. The elimination standard was 30 seconds. If you go outside the net before 30 seconds or are seriously injured, you will be eliminated from the promotion exam. The competition began. Kim Min-jun was again visited by someone, none other than Dongjin. He also thought Min had already been eliminated from the stats test. Like hell I was. Actually, he said that because all the privates first class here had failed before, and he meant to remind him of the danger of rubber bullets. As soon as he finished, a comrade was shot in the head and blood splattered everywhere. This person was immediately eliminated and escorted to the infirmary by another. Unexpectedly, the passing rate for the promotion exam was this low, but compared to fighting monsters, this level of difficulty was nothing. The next hunters were eliminated one after another, making the instructor unable to contain his anger and scold them for their low abilities. After this lecture, the next person to take the test was Sun Yun-seo. She carefully warmed up. Her bullet-dodging movements were incredibly fast and flexible, using her whole body to evade. This ability made even the men stare wide-eyed, and the instructor was very satisfied. When the time was up, Sun Yun-seo achieved a perfect score quite effortlessly. As she passed Kim Min-jun, she gave him a sharp, direct look. Kim Min-jun was bewildered, not understanding what the hell was going on, but the people around them thought the two were dating. What the hell? When it was Kim Min-jun's turn, Sun Yun-seo was still staring intently without looking away for a second. He stepped into the test area with a 90% clueless attitude, but the remaining 10% still dodged bullets as lightly as a feather. Sun Yun-seo stared in amazement, then saw Kim Min-jun casually strolling with both hands in his pockets. I'll show you guys what a real difference in skill looks like. Everyone present at the scene stared wide-eyed. Without even using his whole body, Min still moved gracefully like a bird, walking casually amidst a storm of rubber bullets. Not even a single hair was harmed. Not only that, but he also struck a few poses to tease Sun Yun-seo. Even the instructor was speechless. He forgot to stop the timer, letting the time run over by more than 10 seconds before ordering a ceasefire. In this test, he achieved a perfect speed score. Nothing surprising about it at all. Finally, those who passed the speed test were brought to the entrance of a dungeon for the stamina test. The time was 40 minutes, a sequential run. You just needed the examiner to stamp the proctor's seal on your hand and return. The only problem was the distance to the checkpoint. They didn't know how far they had to run. This information wasn't provided by the commander. Since it had just started, everyone was cautious and adjusting their speed. But running like turtles like this made Min extremely frustrated. It's fine to go off on my own. While he was lost in thought, Sun Yun-seo sped past, brushing by Kim Min-jun, and even looking back at him as if in defiance. Bring it on. If you touch me, I'll touch back. When I get mad, don't ask who my daddy is. You want to compete. That's fine. Too bad, sweetie. You picked the wrong opponent to challenge. Kim Min-jun frowned and started to speed up. Soon, he had caught up with Sun Yun-seo. Nothing special, huh? Kim Min-jun looked at her and smirked. Then he casually sped past with a smug grin. I have to try hard just like you. Watching his back disappear into the distance, Sun Yun-seo remembered the days when she first enlisted and was welcomed by her female comrades. However, behind their enthusiastic exterior, there was still some discrimination because of her status as a general's daughter. Everywhere she went, people would point and gossip, saying she was arrogant because she was a general's daughter. Sun Yun-seo had always tried to ignore those rumors. Then Kim Min-jun appeared. Since then, no matter what achievement she made, right behind it was another more outstanding achievement by Kim Min-jun. Everywhere she went, she heard her female comrades talking about him. She heard it so much that even when she went to sleep, the stories wouldn't end. Sun Yun-seo remembered her father's appearance when she was young. He patted her head and then left, but never returned. Since then, Sun Yun-seo had resolved to make herself stronger and stronger, just like her father. One day when she went to the company commander's office, he asked her where she wanted to go. If it was General Sun's 107th Division, but instead Sun Yun-seo asked where Kim Min-jun was going. Remembering those things, Sun Yun-seo realized it wasn't really because she wanted to be here, but because of her childish competitiveness. Getting angry in a moment, she had acted impulsively like a child. Losing a competition might make her feel unhappy. Thinking back on Kim Min-jun's outstanding performances, she blushed because she had been so envious. But she also admitted that she always wanted to become stronger, not to be the number one. She came here to get stronger, without her father's help. If she met someone truly strong, she would try to be acknowledged and learn something, even if it was just one thing. Stop being a child. Sun Yun-seo. She struggled to finally reach the destination, only to find Kim Min-jun already there, chatting away to the point where the instructor had to chase him off. Seeing Sun Yun-seo, he held up the seal, smiled triumphantly, and even said, she did a great job making him wait so long he almost fell asleep. Sun Yun-seo wanted to take back her earlier words. Her face turned red with anger as she demanded the instructor quickly stamp her hand, then she furiously ran back, exiting the dungeon. Kim Min-jun didn't have a single drop of sweat, his hair wasn't even messy. A handsome and radiant figure, Sun Yun-seo, right behind him, was grim-faced and out of breath. The people behind them also emerged half dead and dragging themselves. Kim Min-jun once again took first place with a time of 29 minutes. The instructor was so happy he was grinning from ear to ear. The instructor couldn't help but praise him for being exceptionally outstanding, achieving a perfect score in all categories. All the tests end here. The hunters who pass the test after finishing your meal will gather in front of the training ground in 1 hour. As everyone was getting their coats to leave, Kim Min-jun stuck out his tongue to tease Sun Yun-seo, then cheerfully left, leaving Sun Yun-seo pale-faced. Seeing him laughing and joking with everyone, she realized she was the only one who had been provoked. Anyway, she had lost, so she just smiled in acceptance. There was nothing left to say. 105th Division Base. Practical Test Center, No. 2. A horde of monsters armed with wooden clubs surrounded Dongjin. The young man had incredibly high-level sword skills, but appeared flustered when facing the monsters. He was almost hit in the head by a monster's club, but luckily, his quick reflexes allowed him to block the blow in time and kick it away. Just as that was over, another one jumped in to attack from behind. Dongjin managed to swing his sword in time, slashing the monster and forcing it back. There were still 2 more monsters. Seeing Dongjin's expression, Min fell into deep thought. This was the second part of the practical test, also known as the Special Weapon Proficiency Test. This is actually simpler than I thought. It was simply about demonstrating the skills learned at the Hunter Corps for the examiners. And that concluded the test. Strength and agility in the movements didn't matter. It was simply about following the sequence to pass. And obviously Min got a perfect score. Most candidates chose swordsmanship for the test. And among them, Private First Class Lee Dongjin received a very high score. But now look at him. Does he look any different from a tadpole? In the final part of the test, also known as the ability to handle situations when facing monsters, privates had to defeat 4 hounds, while privates first class had to defeat 3 goblins with the special weapon they had chosen. A real battle. Finally, Dongjin managed to clear out this annoying mob of goblins. The instructor seemed quite disappointed with his performance in this test. Lee Dongjin was also panting heavily, leaving dejectedly. From Min's perspective, Lee Dongjin had too many opportunities to slash the goblins, but each time he hesitated probably because he didn't believe in his own strength. Right after Lee Dongjin, it was Kim Min-jun's turn. Min thought to himself, he should watch me and learn because today no one can stop me from becoming a sergeant, and I will show you just how detrimental that habit of yours is. To everyone's bewilderment, Min heroically shouldered a baseball bat, studded with a few nails, and marched straight back into the fight. Even the instructor had to doubt this choice, thinking he was making things difficult for himself. 3 goblins, big and small, were released. It was just a simple fight. This is my damn specialty. 3 of them attacked at once. Min was just seen standing there with his hands on his hips. In reality, these things were no different from rabbits, and Min was an eagle. He had just made a move, and it was like an eagle snatching a rabbit. 3 of them were wiped out at once. It only took 4 seconds to finish the test. Everyone there showed an expression of utter disbelief that someone so skilled existed in the 104th Division. Everyone burst with emotion, as if they themselves had won. This glorious halo, Min would like to enjoy it, not complain or lament. Sun Yun-seo truly didn't understand if he was a monster or some kind of deity. It was finally over. The lieutenant couldn't help but praise Kim Min-jun. After all, he was the one who did the best. Even Kim Min-jun was confused by his own promotion speed, almost reporting the wrong rank. Although he was the only one promoted this time, the battalion commander was still as happy as usual after hearing the report, so it was all good. Never before had a private first class passed the practical test with such a terrifying score, so this time it was as if Min had carried the team on his back. Before heading back to the division, Min friendly patted Lee Dongjin on the shoulder, because this was the last time he would see this kind face of Min's. He was ready for a special training session for Lee Dongjin. Surprisingly, Sun Yun-seo came here. She had been promoted to private first class. She also performed well in the monster extermination test. Promotion is a matter of course, but so what? After waiting and sitting down, he still saw her looking at him. She wanted to apologize for the stat test, but then she saw him press his face against the car window and convey a message with a series of exaggerated expressions. If you provoke me again, you'll be gone with me. Before Sun Yun-seo could react, the car had started moving. Wow, is this guy crazy or what? On the bus, the good brothers started pestering him about his and Sun Yun-seo's story. They were all eagerly anticipating some drama, but the main character just blandly said that he was provoked, so he just dampened her fighting spirit a little. The excited group of people suddenly fell silent. No one believed that her fiery gaze was meant to provoke. And then the whole group turned to criticize him for not being gentle with the hot girl of the 104th Division. Faced with countless public accusations, Min just sullenly declared, She's not my ideal type. Of course, after that statement, no one let him off the hook and criticized him even more fiercely. One person who couldn't take it anymore pointed straight at his face and asked who his ideal type was. Min didn't hesitate to spit out a name Lumi, which made everyone freeze solid. Who's that? Who else but the #1 beauty of League of Legends? Alright, this case is hopeless. Returning to the dormitory, Kim Min-jun's entire room got to enjoy his good fortune. The captain treated them to a feast of fried chicken until they were sick of it. It must be said that this was the first time such a treat was seen here, proving he was in an extremely good mood. So the hero of this trip must eat a lot. So quickly, he already had 3 stripes. The red-haired guy felt that the future of becoming a sergeant was not far off. At this moment, Lee Seung-ho returned with a case of beer in his hand and ordered the second squad to assemble in the lounge immediately. The whole team enthusiastically feasting was called away like this, raising many question marks. Lee Seung-ho brought the promotion reward personally sent by the platoon leader, but he kicked out the unrelated people, so the whole group had to quickly move. The red-haired guy was very unhappy with this kind of attitude from Lee Seung-ho. The night grew late, the moon shone brightly, yet someone was sneaking around, and that person was none other than Min. Seeing no one around, he dared to use his dark energy to summon that little ghost girl to ask her something. After the greeting came the assignment to exploit her labor. This is the nature of capitalism, using surplus value to get rich. Min told it to move secretly from now on, and if it saw anyone with a high rank to follow them. This is a stalker, not a scapegoat anymore. But whatever, as long as it gets the job done, its mission was to follow. Gather information about abnormal phenomena, and then report back to Min, especially in situations where magical energy was suspected.